You'll realize that you're angry, and I know you'll probably be angry at me for pointing out that you got anger issues, and I've got used to that. Some who are aware of their anger issues are afraid of their own anger. And they are afraid that if their anger gets triggered, where it might take them. And so that for them makes this a very important topic. And what I have seen is when it comes to guilt in people dealing with trauma and who are in recovery from addiction, their greatest amount of guilt usually comes from stuff they did while they were in the problem, using what they did to their kids, etc. But the second greatest cause of guilt is usually what they've done when they've been angry. Things they've said, things they've done to their kids, to their partner, to friends, to family, that they can't take back. And the damage has been done, and they see the damage, and it causes a ton of guilt. Most people aren't controlling it very well and are doing things that they deeply regret the next day. But it's too late to take it back. What makes it difficult in complex trauma is that when you get triggered to get angry, or something triggers your anger, you have a nanosecond in which to make a decision about how to respond. Because your anger in a nanosecond goes from 0 to 100, and you make decisions that take you in old pathways that are very hard to stop once that anger gets triggered. That leads to the trigger stuff. If you're from complex trauma, you probably have hundreds of things that trigger your anger. If you get disrespected, and you could get disrespected hundreds of different ways, each one of those will trigger your anger. If there's injustice, it will trigger your anger. If somebody lies to you or cheats on you, that triggers your anger. You got trigger after trigger after trigger. So you have 2 good days and you think, I got my anger under control, and then in one day you get 5 triggers and you go through to the moon and back with your anger. That is how quickly it can get out of control, and there's just a lot of things that you have to deal with. It's not just the anger, it's all the triggers. And then some know that their anger at times, when it's triggered, has gone to the point of a black rage, where they don't even realize what they're doing. Their memory kind of blanks out. And then the next thing is that in complex trauma, anger now pulls you in a negative direction. It pulls you in a negative direction in your thinking. You go to very dark thoughts. It pulls you in a negative direction in your behaviors. What is important for you to understand is that the design of anger was that it was to pull you in a good direction. It was to pull you into problem-solving mode and into positive actions. Complex trauma changes all of that. And so now when you're triggered, the force that you feel is super powerful, but it's all to negative things. And so you're fighting a current, a gravitational pull that is super strong and very hard to resist. Next, some people coming out of complex trauma find that they become addicted to their anger. They love it and hate it at the same time. They love the power that it gives them. They love the rush. They love how it intimidates others. They love a lot of things about it. So they hate the damage that it does, but part of them still needs it. And they become addicted to it, just like a drug. And so every morning they get their anger fixed when they wake up, and that gets them through the day, and then they have an anger hangover that night as their brain gets all foggy and they just feel crappy. But it is like a drug for them. Some of you have so much addiction to anger and so much anger there that you go looking for a fight every morning. You just want to vent your anger, and so if you can't find a helpless driver going down Portage Ave or something else to get angry at, you go push buttons on people and you start to pick fights so you can vent your anger. And that's how deep the anger has become. Next one, anger at yourself. So we tend to think that anger is something that we direct outward at situations that aren't right or that people that are jerks. But when you come out of complex trauma, a good part of your anger is directed at yourself. And that can come from guilt, that can come from shame, that can come from all kinds of different things. But there's a ton of anger that has never been resolved towards yourself. So let me give you the questions that I would ask. Scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being absolute none, 0, next to nothing, 10 being crazy, high, through the roof. How much anger was in your family of origin? Now, I don't want you to think just in terms of explosive anger with dad yelling and throwing things and hitting things. What I want you to think about is how much anger and tension and awkwardness did you sense? Because some of you just lived in constant fear and walked on eggshells for fear that somebody was going to get angry. There was so much tension in the air. So that would be a 9 or a 10 in your growing up world. So it could be violent anger. It could be just supercharged tension environment. Second question. As you look at your own life, in the past 10 years, on average, where would you put your anger? 0 anger, or living with the needle in the red, constantly ready to blow a fuse and explode at any moment? So that's an evaluation for you. And then, in the last 2 months of your life, where would you rank your anger? Would it be the same as your average over the last 10 years? Or is there a lot less anger in your life these days? Give yourself kind of a comparison point as you look at your own anger. And then, what has been your latest anger experience? Some of you, it was coming here tonight. Some of you, as soon as you saw somebody here tonight. Whatever. Some are agreeing with me on that. What I want you to understand is what triggered it and how intense did it get? So that's your latest thing to kind of tap into. Okay? So that's a bit of an overview, introduction around anger. Now let me kind of teach you some stuff. When I look at complex trauma, the main thing I want people to understand is there's really 2 types of anger that are connected with complex trauma. So I like to think of a volcano, and a volcano has all of the lava that is down below the surface, that is seething, bubbling away all the time, and then every once in a while there's an eruption. So anger 1 is the lava, anger 2 is the eruption. Okay? Most anger management courses focus on the eruption type of anger and how to control that. The difference with complex trauma is that the lava anger is the main issue. And unless you deal with the lava anger, you're going to keep erupting no matter how many courses you take. So understanding the lava anger is critical.